Last class, we discussed one important point, that is the power semiconductor device family that we are talking about. That is something we are referring by the term thyristors. And we find that when we are talking about these thyristor, there is an important segment that uh, there are other devices like diac, triac, which are all operating based on the principle of rectification, which is controlled by the silicon devices. So this is something that we have as a basic construction, basic name. These kind of devices collectively we are referring as the thyristor. So if you remember in the last class, I was referring to that concept that when we talk about the class of semiconductor devices, we refer by the term transistor. But what we find that maybe we are talking about bipolar junction transistor, we are talking about field effect transistor, we are talking about metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. So as a broad classification, they are all the included in the group of the family of the transistors. So in this case, what we observe that we will actually talk about the class of devices which is characterized as the special semiconductor devices or the power semiconductor devices, where we will talk about this particular group as something known as SCR, that is the silicon controlled rectifier. And basically what we find that it is basically an ordinary rectifier with a particular control element that is referred as gate. So it's just the rectifier where we have one control element, and that is going to be the particular gate that we consider. We are going to apply some kind of suitable biasing voltage at this particular gate terminal, and accordingly the device will be turned on. Okay, so then what we find that if we apply a bias voltage, then there will be some amount of current flowing into the device, and that will be referred as the gate current. So depending upon the gate current, we will find the voltage. I will just now represent the figures that anode to cathode, there will be the construction in that way that device will try to conduct and the gate current will be flowing. So what we find in the last class, we discussed another important point, that is we are interested with two important features, that is the turn on and the turn off methods, because our main principle is of like the switching operation. In the last class we discussed a classification that how do we differentiate between linear operation and switching operation. Once we use the term switching, we immediately understand that a device will be switched on, a device will be switched off. If you remember in the last class, I gave one specific analogy, though exactly we don't match over here in the same way. We were talking about the concept of inertia that we studied in physics in the chapter of motion. That is, when you have a small car, it is putting on the brakes, it can stop immediately within a very, very short time duration. But if it's a train and it puts on the brakes, then it can't stop immediately, it will roll on. And by virtue of its inertia, it will continue its journey for a certain time duration, and then it can stop. So what we find in most cases, like all the train accidents that we come across, many of the incidents you have heard of in the recent past, In many festivals also these things happened, like people were confused which line the train is going to come, so they were all enjoying a particular probably some kind of festival in the UP area. I'm just not recalling exactly that location, but many people died because the train through the fog could not see, or even if they were the train was putting on the horns, there was so much of noise, people could not understand the train is approaching, and they were all killed by that train, that mishap, particular accident. Though the driver put on the brakes, but he could not control the particular accident. So if this happens in our particular scenario, then what will be the fate? It can cause tremendous accident in an entire like industry where some machineries are working in together. So there can be a fire breakout, there can be any kind of accident that may occur. And we find in many cases, even if like people find that some machine is rolling over and there is a chance of accident, in many cases there are several such reports that we come across, that even the mechanic who was operating the device could not stop it, could not control that accident, and they were helpless. They were seeing that this person is going to die, but they could not control. So the point that is of interest is how we can control the turn off features. This is something that I was trying to stress in the last class. One important point is turn on, but most important is the turn off methods of the particular device for any case in the switching operation. If it takes some time to switch on, to turn on, then definitely the activity, the process will be slower, fine. At the end of the day, what is important, not always the profit in case of the production, that if a particular device is taking much time to operate, no. But if a particular device by virtue of its operation is killing people, then that is not recommended. So how I can stop that particular situation, that is very, very important. So this is one important parameter. Always you remember that whenever in industry you are trying to design any step, the first thing that comes is how you make a fail-safe design. The fail-safe with reference to first is the resources, the casualties that can be avoided in terms of the lives, the human values, or any other, in any case, if any other like animals are involved, they are working at certain, you are using some animals to do some particular task. If some kind of things are being arranged in that way, first and foremost is the health issue of all the living individuals, then the production factor and the machineries. So these way the fail-safe models are designed. So you will observe that if you come across these parts, then what we find that when the cars are designed, when the different bikes, the scooters, every particular design is being done, you will find that in the cars the airbags that are provided. Why these airbags are provided? Are they encouraging that you will meet with an accident? Are they testing in that way? You will find that even for a phone, they are putting that hammer test, they are putting that like water test, they are drowning that phone, trying to check whether it operates. They give lot of emphasis on the different kind of checks under some physical damage that you may encounter, and then they put different kind of remarks. But the problem is, if you want, okay, there has been a hammer test performed, let me try to test after I buy this phone. So probably you will find that the phone is getting broken or something like that. So it is not a very good idea that even if whatever the tests are being performed, you suddenly perform it with a particular device. But when it comes to a point that you are trying to design a system in an industry which involves human factors, and the errors can cause the lives of different people, then that is a very important challenge. And so that's why I am putting this stress that the turn off methods will be dealt with much caution. So that is one important point. So further, so what we find that we are trying to control the rectifier by using the gate bias voltage, that in turn controls the gate current, and accordingly it will go from the off state to the on state. It's like a control rectifier which is being operated in many power control devices. So as a total class of which are operating with the principle of the silicon control rectifier, these are collectively being referred as the thyristors. So what is a silicon control rectifier in that sense? So what we observe that let us take this particular figure. Say, let me draw the symbolic representation first. The symbolic representation in total, as we represent it, it is something like this. So this we all know, that is the diode. So over here what we find that if this is the anode and this is the cathode that we have, then we have over here a terminal which is being referred as the gate. So this particular device that we observe here, say figure A at this point, this is like our figure B, this is the figure C, and this is our figure D. So at this point what we find, this is the representation of the silicon control rectifier where we have these three terminals: anode, cathode and gate. So it will operate in two modes or two states. So one will be the on state and the other is the off state. Now, how the things will work on? If a huge diffusion current is flowing between this anode to the cathode side of the device, then we will say that it is in the on state. And if a very small leakage current flows, the device will go into the off state. So first and foremost thing, this is important to note, that when do we refer the device is in the on state? When there is a huge diffusion current which is flowing between anode and cathode of the device. And when there is a small leakage current flowing, then we are going to refer it as the device is now moving into the off state. So this is the important point. And the transition from off state to on state is going to be determined by the gate current. So ultimately what we have is that the limiting parameter or the important parameter to note is the gate current in all the cases. How you are going to take control of this particular concept. So this is, if you look into the figure A, that is just the symbolic representation. From that particular point, we can talk about this particular situation as it is all concerned about the gate terminal who is making a control over the gate bias voltage so that the gate current is getting accordingly controlled. Come to figure B. So in the figure B, what we find, it's like the construction of an SCR, the silicon control rectifier. So at this point, how many layers are present? If you observe that it consists of 4 semiconductor layers. If you refer it like this, like if I name it P1, N1, P2, N2. And we find that there are 3 junctions like J1, J2, J3. So imagine that when we have considered the NPN transistor, bipolar junction transistor, or PNP transistor in our earlier studies of bipolar junction transistor, BJT, in the basic semiconductor devices, in that case we have noted that they were 2 terminal devices. Over here we consider that this is like a 3-terminal device where we have 4 layers, P1, N1 and P2, N2. And now to understand the device properties, what we imagine that these N1 and P2, these N1 and P2 layers, we are trying to split it into something like N1 and N1 dash and P2 and P2 dash, as in this particular figure C, if we observe this. And then what we consider that these N1, N1 dash and P2, P2 dash are like sorted. Now, N1 is connected to N1 dash and P2 is connected to P2 dash. So the device properties are not going to change. So what we find now, if we refer in this particular situation, we observe that this is something like a PNP transistor and this is something like an NPN transistor. So over here the layers are referred as, say, P1, N1, P2, and this is the PNP transistor and this is like N1 dash, P2 dash, N. So we have 2 transistor blocks. We can consider, we can replace it, we can imagine it like 2 transistor blocks, and accordingly if you look into, this is the equivalent circuit representation. So at that point, if you look into the structure, we get the transistor representation in that way. Okay, so what we find that it's a 4-layer device. We are trying to imagine that we are splitting it up, and if we split it up, then how we can represent? We can consider that there are 2 transistors, PNP and NPN transistors, which are connected, and these devices N1 and P2 we are trying to split up in 2 layers. So when we try to draw the transistor equivalent model, then we can assume it to be consisted of 2 transistors, that is one PNP and the other one as the NPN. And you observe that how these are connected, that at this point this is the PNP. So from this N layer to that NPN, so it is being connected. So this is how the connection being done. And if this P layer is connected to this P. So PNP, this P, and this is the base of the NPN transistor. So you can observe that from this point, this is being connected. So this is the total model. But on the whole, if you imagine that who was my controlling parameter? That gate. I am applying the gate bias voltage. So when I am trying to think of the gate voltage, so where is the control or the trigger applied? It is being applied at this particular point over this NPN transistor. So this is the total representation of the circuit in that sense. Now, one thing is like when we studied PNP transistor or NPN transistor, I feel like only the electronic students study that particular model. I'm not going into the details of that part. That is, we can imagine that it is composed of one PN junction diode and another PN junction diode connected in the reverse order. Is the same for the NPN also. We can imagine in this way that there is one PN and another PN connected back to back. So if we try to study the mathematical model based on this particular concept, there are 2 models available. One is known as Ebers-Moll model and another is known as Gamel-Poon model. This is when we study the different portions with electronics, we go about this method where we try to split up the transistors and try to analyze the classification based on the 2 diode equations. over here what we are going to do, we are not going to study the PN junction diode, but what we are going to study is basically the two transistor model of SCR and try to represent and try to find the analogy based on this particular concept and make our study accordingly. So in this case you observe just a minute. This is, let me rub and write once again. This is the base, right, of the NPN transistor. This is the NPN transistor and this is the PNP transistor. So for the PNP transistor, what we find, this is the base of the device. It is being fitted to the collector of the NPN. So at this point you observe this current is like IB1, which is equal to IC2. So the base of the first current, first transistor is becoming the collector for the second. And this is the collector current of the first transistor, which is becoming the base current of the second. And ultimately what we find that this is the emitter current IE2, which is becoming the total current that we can get as the summation of the anode current which was coming plus the gate current that has been generated based on the biasing voltage applied. So if we consider this mark, if we consider this portion, then we can put it in this way. That in this particular figure, current of the transistor, say TR1, becomes the base current of transistor TR2. So therefore, what we can write, IC1, or maybe we can write with this capital notation, that again that small signal, large signal analysis factor will come up. I'm not going into that details now. IC1 equal to IB2 and IB1 is equal to IC2. So you observe that over here IB1 equal to IC2 and this IC1 is becoming the base current. So the total cathode current that we observe, that is IK, is equal to IA, the anode current, plus the gate current that we apply, that is IG. Now, if you have the faintest of your memories, then from that you can write from the concept of, from the point of view of transistor analysis, from transistor point of view, what we studied, we studied that the base current for an NPN transistor is, PNP transistor is calculated as the fraction of the emitter collector current that is being moving out. So IE1 minus IC1. So IE1, the emitter current, is that major portion which is coming, and some portion that is being fed back, that is the collector current. So IE1 minus IC1. And what is our IC1? IC1 was considered as fraction of the emitter current, alpha factor, alpha IE1, plus the reverse saturation current, ICO1, for the first transistor. So let me put some equation numbers over here. Equation number 1, equation number 2, and equation number 3. I repeat this step once again, that what is the definition for the collector current? What we find, that collector current is the output is basically the fraction. This is for the first transistor PNP, so alpha 1, fraction of the emitter current plus the reverse saturation current for the PN junction. So it is the ICO1. This is the reverse saturation current that we have. So ICO1 we refer as the reverse saturation current, or we refer it as the reverse leakage current of the reverse bias junction. This is the reverse bias junction, and for that reverse bias junction, J2 of the two transistors, we are considering the reverse leakage current. Now, this equation 3, if we now put in equation 2, then what we get, that equation 3 is equation 2, if we put it over there, IB1 equal to, let me put it over here only in this page. This was IB1 equals to IE1 minus, instead of IC1, we can now write as alpha 1 IE1 minus ICO1. So if we now take IE1 common, then we have 1 minus alpha 1 IE1 minus ICO1. So now if we observe this particular figure as we were considering at this point, that what we observed, that anode current that was coming for of the particular device is becoming the anode current. Anode current is basically the emitter current of the first device. So we now immediately take who is this particular emitter current, IE1, from the figure, from figure D. This IE1 is nothing but the anode current that was coming. So immediately we can represent this particular equation IB1 as 1 minus alpha 1 IA minus the reverse saturation current, the leakage current ICO1. And we put some equation number over here, equation number 4. And what about this particular value for this collector current IC2? Now this IC2, if you observe, which is coming over here, in the same way like we have represented over here this IC1, IC2 is going to be like the same way, alpha 2 IE2 plus ICO2. So this is the basic transistor equations that we have studied earlier. So we know that again from transistor analysis, we can write that IC2 is alpha IE2 plus ICO2. And what we observe, that at this point the cathode current that we are considering over here, that is basically the emitter current of the transistor T2. So emitter current means that our IE2 is basically the cathode current, that is IK. So how I can represent, therefore what it will be for IC2? This IC2 we can write as alpha 2, sorry I missed out this 2 over here, alpha 2 IK plus ICO2. Okay, now what about this base current? The base current in the first figure, IB1, was our IC2. This factor, IB1 is equal to IC2. So let me put over here this as equation number 5. This is IC2. So how we can find it? If we now substitute equation number 4 and equation number 5 in this particular place of IB1 equal to IC2. Let me write once again. It will be easy for us to understand. We noted IB1 is equal to IC2. Now over here, if we put the values now, see IB1, this entire part if we now try to put, substituting equation 4 and 5, or what was IB1? IB1 was 1 minus alpha 1 IA minus ICO1 equals to, what is IC2? IC2 is this part, that is alpha 2 IK plus ICO2. Putting equations 4 and 5. So if we now solve it, just algebraic expression. So now if we put the value, now what is IK? IK is nothing but, as we observed, that IK was, in the first equation we noted that this is the anode current plus the gate current. So in this particular case, say this is our, this particular equation is the 6th equation. If we put the values, then what we find, or 1 minus alpha 1 IA minus ICO1 is equal to alpha 2 into, instead of IK, what we can write? We can write IA plus IG plus ICO2. See, our target is that we are not going to write any equation which takes care of the intermediate currents. That is the emitter current, base current, collector current, again the base current, collector current, emitter current, because this is the analogy, this is the model that we are trying to imagine. This is our imagination. Figure number C and figure number D are our imagination, and figure number A is the reality, where we have the actual symbolic representation how things are being working. So this is the total structure, the construction that we have as the 4-layered device with the 3 junctions. So over there we cannot exactly calculate what is happening in between. So in that case we must come across such kind of mathematical process so that we can remove these particular base, collector, all these concepts. So we find that now this particular equation is devoid of any such parameters in between. So now if we take the anode currents together, then what we have, or 1 minus alpha 1 IA minus alpha 2 IA minus ICO1 is equal to alpha 2 IG plus ICO2. That's it. So if we now take this IA common, what we find that 1 minus alpha 1 minus alpha 2 into anode current is equal to alpha 2 Ig plus ICO1 plus ICO2. Okay, so again we observe that the entire concept, if we take it in the total sense, what we have seen that the output current was the gain factor with that emitter current plus the reverse saturation current. So you observe here the factors remain the same. This is our some factor with the anode current equals to a portion of the gate current plus the leakage current. So this concept of the representation wise, everything remains the same. So or IA as a form, we can represent it as alpha 2 Ig plus ICO1 plus ICO2 whole by 1 minus alpha 1 minus alpha 2. So if we now assume that, again, these kind of assumptions over the years we are doing with any kind of our engineering applications or with mathematical notations, that if the reverse saturation current is or the leakage current is assumed to be negligibly small, to be very, very small, then what we can find that considering very small amount of leakage current, our anode current can be represented as alpha 2 Ig by 1 minus alpha 1 plus alpha 2. So this we get it as a form of the equation. This will be our equation number 7. Okay, so now from this particular equation, what we can analyze, that suppose these alpha 1 plus alpha 2, this factor, if this part alpha 1 plus alpha 2, these are quite similar type of assumptions that we have done over the years, that alpha 1 plus alpha 2, if it is very, very close to 1, then what happens? The value of the anode current, this IA factor will become infinite. That means the anode current suddenly will attain an extremely high value, which will mean that the device is suddenly, the anode current is extremely high, then that means it is suddenly moving into the state of the on state, that is the conduction state from the off state. These particular characteristic, if you remember in the last day, we were trying to make a classification of the rectifiers, and in that case we had two major classifications. What were those? The classifications were referred as uncontrolled and controlled. In that part, we had a portion that was known as the regenerative action. Let me just try to share that particular segment also. Just wait for a moment. In the last class, we have shared that particular part, that how the things are getting classified. Let me just try to show you that also. Let me see if I can find it. Just wait for a second. Anyway, I'm not finding that document once again. Anyway, so the classification, if you remember, the classification part is here. I can just show you once again that classification, though the regenerative segment is not mentioned over here. I will try to go into the other segment also. Just a moment, let me. This was the portion that rectifiers, when we are talking about the single phase, three phase, this uncontrolled half wave, half control, full control over there. We were talking about the half wave, full bridge, the full wave, and the half wave and the full bridge over the split supply and bridge. So under that segment, we will come across the regenerative action, the regenerative states also. These discussions we will have when we move into the classification and the other segments. So in this part, yes. So in this part, what we find that that considering the small amount of the leakage current, if this is the deduction that we have, if alpha 1 plus alpha 2 factor is almost equal to 1, then what happens that IA, the anode current, becomes infinitely large. So this is the target that I just now mentioned at the very beginning, that our target is to control by the gate bias voltage so that we can have a control over the gate current. So the target will be, I started with the discussion from this point only, that our target is a very high diffusion current from anode to the cathode, which will govern the conducting state of the SCR. So once we talk about the very high conducting state, the high value of diffusion current from anode to cathode, it is conducting, and who is controlling? The gate terminal is going to control as a control pin the flow of the current. So if this is the state, then we will refer at it as the situation. The characteristic will be referred as the regenerative action. So we can consider in this way that if alpha 1 and alpha 2 value is slowly approaching, it is tending towards the value which is 1, actually the device is going to get the trigger. So this is a summary. As a sum up, if we try to relate, then what we find from this particular discussion, that if alpha 1 plus alpha 2 tends to 1, the device is triggered. Okay, because that is going to initiate the anode current to reach to a extremely high value. So that is going to be defined as the turn on condition. So the turn on condition, if we try to highlight, we will refer as alpha 1 plus alpha 2 greater than equals to 1. This is going to be referred as the turn on condition of the SCR. And these, if we try to satisfy, what are the things that need to be done? It can be satisfied in different ways. One is when the current through the device at the very initial instant, when the current through the device at the very initial instant is small, then what we assume or what we find, that these alphas that we are considering, alpha 1 and alpha 2, are also small. And this condition for this breakover, how we can achieve, if only we have some important like hole multiplication factor and the electron multiplication factor. Do you remember one important point as mu n and mu p for transistor? If you can remember that mobility of holes and mobility of electrons that we studied in the very early days of our discussions with bipolar junction transistor. This is again, some of you have studied in your basic electronics course, some of you have studied, or rather all of you have studied in your class 11, 12, in 12 modern physics part. 12th class. Mu n and mu p. So in that case, what we find is when we are trying to study the parameters like alpha n, alpha p for the different junctions, for the n type and the p type, if we are talking about this multiplication factor, the electron multiplication factor or the hole multiplication factor. So if those factors can be increased, then what we find at near the breakdown junction, breakdown voltage of the junction, these factors are also very high. So that is going to create, that is going to provide the required condition for the breakover. So that will be helpful by increasing, that can be obtained by increasing the voltage across the device to the breakover voltage. Okay, so at the junction J2, again let's come back to this particular N and P. This junction J2 is very, very important because it is lying at this point N1 and P2. Observe that in this N1 and P2, which one is the junction? J2. So at that point, what happens that if we can increase the breakdown voltage of the junction J2, then that is going to provide the required voltage for the or required condition for that breakover. This is point 1. Then what is the next point? We can also realize this particular breakover condition if we can increase alpha 1 and alpha 2 separately. How? See in the figure, in this particular figure, what we find, if a particular current, say IA, is injected into the base. How we are doing that? If the current is if we are increasing the gate current in this junction, in this base P, in the same direction as the current IA, that means this is the anode current across the junction J2. So this current gain of NPN transistor, that is the second transistor, will be increased, and that will be independent of the anode to the cathode voltage. Why? Because now alpha 2, that's alpha parameter for the second transistor, alpha 2, will be dependent on this anode current plus gate current, this parameter. That is what we are trying to refer. So if you come down to the equation, then what we find that, right, this cathode current is basically IA plus IG. Now you observe this particular equation, this point. This is my anode current plus gate current. So that is into that alpha 2. So now if we can do by some way that alpha 2 is now dependent on this parameter, that I am trying to increase the current gain of the NPN transistor, if it is increased independent of the anode to the cathode voltage. So what we find, because alpha 2 depends on the alpha IA plus IG. So alpha 1, we will observe that it is only dependent on the anode current. That is the alpha factor, the multiplication factor for the first transistor is only dependent on IA. But alpha 2 is dependent on IA plus IG. Okay? So this will increase, would still depend on IA. The total current gain will now depend on the gate current. And this particular independence will again result into the breakover. So these particular way, so our target is that we are going to increase, or we are going to have alpha 1 plus alpha 2 value increasing to a point of unity or much more than that. So if we try to do that process, then what we observe that these are the different parameters that we can do. And the last process or the step that we can have, if the temperature of the device is high, the leakage current through the device will increase, which can also satisfy the required condition to turn on the device. So again, this is a very critical point. If we consider the device temperature, then what is the point that how far I can afford? This is also very, very important. Okay, so if the temperature of the device is high, the liquid's current will increase. That means it will be providing the required condition to turn on the device. So this is the total process or the total step by virtue of which we can have the characteristic, we can have the turn on feature of the particular device. Now, what we will be looking for is the gate characteristics. Let me try to draw this particular figure, that how it is going to work on. For the diode, what we have seen that the diode characteristic curves are going in this way for the different parameters. And in the next part, what we have seen that they have some kind of a knee voltage, and after that, this will be the representation. So where is the representation? In the first quadrant and the third quadrant. This is how we have seen for the diode. For the transistor, we have seen the representation for the linear saturation, non-saturation cutoff, and those issues. For the thyristors, how they are, for the silicon control rectifier, how we are going to have it, let's observe it. Problem of the apps, it will try to smooth on the curves. It's not going to be so smooth. If you are varying the voltages, this will be referred as forward conduction region. This zone, forward blocking region. What is this voltage? This is that anode to cathode voltage that we have. This is the current that we are trying to take up. This is the reverse recovery current. So this part, after maintaining a slow rate, going to fall steeply, and this part is the reverse breakdown voltage. So what we find, if a negative voltage, say minus VAK, is applied between the anode and cathode, then what happens? So if we have a negative voltage minus VAK being applied between the anode and cathode, what happens with the junction? Let me put this figure once again over here. Yes. Then just now we have observed that these are our junctions J1, J2, J3. So if a negative voltage minus VAK is applied between anode and cathode of SCR, then junction J1 and J2 is going to become reverse biased. These two are reverse biased, and J3 is going to become forward biased. Then what happens in this condition? The equivalent transistors, this particular transistor say Q1 and this particular transistor Q2, will remain in cutoff, and we will have a very small reverse leakage current that is going to flow. And what is the value of this reverse leakage current? These are important for the industrial applications, as we observe. The reverse leakage current, these are going to have a typical range of something like, say, 100 microamperes. And these are referred as the reverse blocking current. Okay, so this is now, if you observe that the reverse blocking current, as we are trying to observe from the figure. What happens? We have in the concept of the PN junction, what we have studied about the type, like the P type and the main type, who are the majority carriers and who are the minority carriers. In the P type, the majority carriers are the holes. In the N, the majority carriers are the electrons. So depending on the junction, we have seen that when we consider the PN junction or we have considered the PNP, then what we observed that P junctions were thicker with a thin PN junction, and we were considering that the P type is the majority carrier, while N type over here is the majority carrier of electrons but with a smaller rate. So whatever be the situation, let us just assume only this part. In the P junction or in the P type, holes are the majority carriers and electrons are the minority carriers. This we know at least from our fundamental studies. So what we observe at this point, that the reverse blocking current that we are considering being the minority carrier current, these remains approximately constant with some increasing reverse bias. So minus until minus VAC minus VAK is high enough to initiate the breakdown of J1 and J2. এটা ততক্ষণই থাকবে, it will continue to that state, still it is enough to initiate the breakdown of the junctions J1 and J2. These particular region will be considered the region of reverse characteristics. Before the reverse breakdown will be termed as the reverse blocking region. So up to that point is the reverse characteristic curve that we are going to get. Ultimately what will happen? There will be a point where we will say the reverse breakdown has set in, and that entire zone below that will be referred as the reverse blocking region. Now coming to the other part, when now the SCR is forward biased, what we have done? We have applied the positive voltage. Positive anode to cathode voltage with our gate terminal with gate current equal to 0. Then what happens? Junctions J1 and J3. Now you observe junction J1 and junction J3. These are going to move into the junction J1 and J3 become forward biased and J2 becomes reverse biased. IG is not given. IG has not been setting. So the gate current I am not controlling. There is a conduction current, as we were mentioning in the very early discussion for today's class, that the anode cathode current, we are trying to make it the high diffusion current. So if we consider that particular phase, then what happens? The junction J1 and J3 are in the forward biased and J2 becomes in the reverse bias because of Ig equal to 0. So for that aspect, with the small, then what we find that as a result, it will result into the voltage for the anode to cathode to create a small forward leakage current that is going to flow through the device. So this is the particular point. The small leakage current will be produced at that point. So this is the point of this IRX, that there is a small leakage current that is slowly setting in with a typical value again of the order of something like 100 microamperes, like that. Transistor now Q2, follow this step. Transistor now Q2 is in cutoff. Why? Because Ig equal to 0, that means Ig equal to 0 means what? That over here the device is not getting any current. So this is already in that cutoff. The transistor base is in cutoff. Q2 is cutoff because kono base current nahi. There is no base current. Ig equal to 0. And so also what happens if this is 0, that means over here we are not going to get any current at this point. So the same thing happens for the transistor Q1 also. But what we are doing, we are increasing the bias voltage right at the very beginning, as we mentioned, that I am going to make a control. The control element is with the gate, that is with the bias voltage. Initially shobai 0. Everyone is 0. So Q1, Q2 are all in that cutoff. But now if we have a bias voltage which is being done by the voltage from anode to cathode, this is increased, then we will find that there is a point being reached when junction J2 breaks down. That is this particular junction. This is the junction over here. This junction is going to break down, and the two component transistor that we know, it's going to switch on to saturation. So once it breaks down, so there will be some flow of current because of the anode to the cathode voltage that is being provided. So this forward voltage at this point is going to be referred as the forward breakdown voltage. After this point is reached, after this VF, this point is reached, the transistors are going to be turned on. So that is the junction breakdown has been reached. So suddenly there is the flow of current flow through the device, and the device resistance will drop. So what happens? We move into the state of the forward conduction region. So this is the state that as we are increasing slowly, so at a certain point there is that blocking region, you are increasing, but what happens, still at that point it is not being able to reach through that threshold point. So there is a point of that curve, there is a point of that drop over here. This is the gate current that we are observing. So at a certain point, what happens when you reach that, or when you cross that forward blocking region mode, then the junction J2 is going to break, and the two component transistor, that is this particular model that we tried to identify in this figure D, then what happens, that it now breaks, the junction breaks, so automatically current starts flowing through the device. So at this point, both the transistors are turned on, and we will find the device resistance which is going to drop. So at this point, the anode to cathode voltage will fall to a low voltage, and that is known as the forward conduction voltage, that is being marked in this state. So this is the particular application, this is the particular state when it is in that particular mode of its application. So this is very important as a point of our application, as we know. Now Now if now you observe this particular state in this particular figure, we are applying the positive voltage between the gate and cathode at this point, between the gate and cathode. Where is the gate and the cathode point? As we observe, this is the transistor Q2. So this is the gate and the cathode terminal. At these reference, as we are applying the positive voltage, the device may turn on with some lower value of anode to cathode also. Under which condition it will turn on? If the gate current IG is slightly larger than the leakage current ICO. See, two things we have to remember. This is a bit complicated from the physics point of view as we take it. That two things we have to work on with simultaneously. Let me write it here separately. First and foremost, we have to consider that we have a two transistor model. One is our PNP transistor and the other is the NPN transistor. And two are working on two different principles, that under which condition which one is going to be triggered. And at this point in the overall scale, what we find that this is a 3-terminal device where we have a gate to cathode point. And in that case, what we observe that there is a junction at this level, like this P. If you observe this segment, let me mark with this black note, like PPN, or rather in the last figure as I have drawn, P2 dash N2. This was our segment. So in this case, what we find that over here there is a voltage between gate to cathode. So this is working with the state of the gate to cathode, means this is the voltage zone, gate to cathode. So if we take the particular transistor model, this particular zone, this is something like how Q2 is going to process. That is very, very important. So if we now apply a positive voltage between the cathode and between the gate and the cathode, then the device may turn on with even some lower anode to cathode voltage. And if the gate current, that is our control, is slightly larger from whom? From the leakage current, it will have a very, very less effect on the anode to cathode voltage for switching on. But when this gate current is increased sufficiently high, even with small value of anode to cathode voltage, it can set the forward bias of the transistors. That means both the emitters of Q1 and Q2, the base emitter junction of Q1 Q2 will be sufficiently enough to be in the forward bias, so this can turn on. Okay, so that means what we find, that a turn on voltage at the initial phase is high. You are increasing slowly, and at a certain point the device starts conducting. But then as you move on, then what you find, even if the anode to cathode voltage is less, if you can simply control the gate terminal, you can set in the device to be in the turn on state, even if the anode to cathode voltage is not at that extremely high value. Now let's see at the very initial point. So you can say that, sir, you are contradicting yourself. You started with telling that anode to cathode voltage, if the conduction current is more, the device will be in the turn on state. But right now I am telling that even if under these circumstances, if you can increase the gate current, then even with smaller anode to cathode current, the device can be turned on. So it creates a very complicated situation, that how I can turn off the device. If the device is setting on after certain stages of operation with the different cases of the temperature conditions of the different terminals and other parameters of the entire device, if this happens, then how I can work on in the entire phase. So what we find, that turn on voltage is falling with increasing gate current. So this is now in the conduction mode. The device has moved into the conduction mode. In the conduction mode, what we find, a positive gate cathode voltage is going to forward bias. If I put it in this way, in the conduction mode, whatever be the situation, how we have made it in the conduction mode, a positive gate to the cathode voltage is going to forward bias the base emitter of Q2. Base emitter of Q2. Okay, so that is going to cause a base current IB2 to flow. Let me see how we can represent it over here. Let me try to represent with a particular figure. Say this is our anode. Say this is our PNP transistor. This was our IB1, or rather in the figure I referred it as IB1 with small notes, and this was our IC1, right? So at this point, or at this level, this is our gate terminal. So this is basically our IG, the gate current. And at this point, what we have the NPN transistor. So we find that this is the cathode, this is our VG, the gate to cathode, and this is our the anode to cathode voltage. And what is this part? This IG that we are having over here, this is now IB2, and this is the collector current to the next over the transistor here, and this is our IE2. Right, so this just now we have tried to work on with this. So in the conduction mode, what happens? A positive gate to cathode voltage forward biases Q2 base emitter junction, and these causes a base current IB2 to flow. Consequently, what it is going to produce? It is going to produce that IC2. Since IC2 is again the same as IB1, you observe now, this is the what we know, that this is the current. So again, by the two-port network model, if you now remember, again I mentioned in the last class that we don't need to go into the two-port analogy, but just the conceptually we need to know that how it was represented, that all the current directions are represented, that it is moving inside. So in that way, if we take it, that at this point, this particular IC2 is same as IB1. So Q1 is also switched on. This is our Q1. And IC1, that is this collector current, for the first transistor is flowing, which is now providing the IB2. So say this is the entire process is now latched up, isn't it? So again I repeat this process. In the conduction mode, there is a positive gate to cathode voltage, which is forward biasing Q2. This is point number 1. Point number 2 is this will cause base current IB2 to flow, that is going to produce IC2. Now what is IC2? IC2 is same as IB1. So what happens if you are having some IB1, so automatically Q1 switches on. And so if Q1 is switched on, it is now going to produce this IC1, which is now provides IB2. Okay, so that means for each segment, for this collector current, it is providing more base current that is needed for the transistor, because this process is what is happening. It is every time once one iteration is going on like a loop. Once a particular loop is on, it is in the next instant it is going to produce more base current that is needed for the transistor. So what happens? Ultimate target produces more base current for the transistor. Okay, so if it is producing more base current for the transistor than is needed, ja dorkar, that was required tar theke beshi. So producing more base current than what was required, more than needed. So that is being done. So what happens? Point number 3. Transistor moves into saturation under which condition? Even if IG, the gate current, is cut off. So what we can say with in the 4th point, transistors remain on, conducting heavily even with small voltage to cathode, and voltage for anode to cathode voltage drop. So what we observe, the trigger is removed. SCR is still on. This condition is referred as latching. So see one thing. Hey, are you all there? What happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So fine. So what we observe, that this is a situation like the chaos that we suffered in the different cases. You will find maybe one person did something wrong, or maybe he triggered an issue In many of the political events also we find such cases, maybe in the university campus, maybe in the different games also. Say you two people were playing, something happened, you created or someone created a chaos, then who created the chaos left the spot, then other people are fighting among themselves. So you will find that in many cases such things happen. A very normal situation was occurred, then people raised different issues and the process kept on rolling. So things we find in India, these things happen. The main triggering point, what was that? What is the original motive? No one remembers. But then things are going on. This is something which is referred as latching. And this is very important for SCR. Now you see what is the critical point. Because you have removed the trigger. The original triggering point, that is your gate. As we draw in the main circuit diagram at the very initial point, this was our main circuit point. That gate is the triggering pin, and what we assumed that anode to cathode voltage has to be high. This was our control element. So I started from this point and I need to have a high gate current. So who is going to control the gate bias voltage? But what we observe at a certain point, once you make it, you draw it into certain position, that you are able to produce some kind of triggering voltage to the gate. And at that point, if it can match, if it can move into this latching condition, then what happens? This now moves into a certain kind of a loop. So this has gone into a loop. A ke badacche, this is increasing, so it is moving on in that loop. So gate is now inactive, it triggered the point. So if we can remove that, it works on in that way. So this condition is termed as latching. So what we see, what we have seen over here, that too, when we are trying to switch silicon control rectifier from off to the on state, we require, so ultimately what we observe, if we try to check, to switch on, if I write it in this way, the most important term here, to switch on SCR from off state to on state, only a small or brief, a small pulse of gate current is required. Once it is switched on, the gate has no further control over the device and it remains on until the anode cathode is reduced nearly to zero. So further, that SCR may also be triggered on with no gate current if anode to gate cathode voltage is made sufficiently large. So what you can conclude, that first and foremost observation, to switch on SCR from off state to on state, only a small pulse of gate current is required. And if you apply that, once switched on, once done, once switched on, remove the trigger or remove the control. So this is the one method that you have, and it remains on. How long it will remain on? Will continue to be on till you can reduce. Once switched on, remove the control, it remains on till voltage from anode to cathode is drawn back to zero by some method. That is our turn off method discussion. And there is no gate current. I don't have any control at the initial point over there. What we can do? We can make voltage from anode to cathode should be made sufficiently large. So is it okay? That means I have basically two situations to work on with. Either you have a trigger. So you observe this is, if you try to math, I always try to talk in this way. In the last few classes back also, when I was just mentioning about the digital logic also, I mentioned one important point, that you will observe all the circuit designs that we do basically imitate what we do in our society. So you observe this particular situation, that to have something happening in the society, what you need. One point is, there should be a trigger. You put that trigger and you will find everything is happening as you have desired. And if that does not happen, then what happens? What you require? You need to make a condition sufficiently large enough. And you just can imagine, I'm not in this open class, I'm not going into any such discussion which can drag into a controversial or debatable topic, into the political issues. But you can think of any particular situation, you will observe that definitely there are some issues where you can work with these two conditions. Either you have a trigger applied, that trigger is removed, but you are into that chaotic situation and you don't know how to come out of that chaotic situation until and unless some really forcefully some condition is imposed to stop that situation. And the other way is, you automatically create a disbalance to a sufficiently large amount, so that also creates a confusion in the entire state, or state means situation. Okay, so these are the different observations that we find, which is again true for the SCR also. The silicon control rectifier, once we try to think of how to switch it on, we can do it in these two possible ways. Right. Okay, is it clear up to this point? Are you getting, all of you? So if I just look back to the entire class that we discussed today, one is the point that how we can break up the SCR, which is a three terminal device considering the 4 layers and 3 junctions, into the 2 transistor model analogy, PNP and NPN, where we try to work on with the transistor model itself by representing the transistor in the figure D. Then we try to calculate the relation between the anode, cathode and the gate currents. We use the intermediate states of the 2 transistors, emitter, base and the collector currents, but we slowly remove those IE1, IE2, IB1, IB2, IC1, IC2 and ICO1 and ICO2 parameters. And we observe that we have our dependence only on the alpha parameters, alpha 1 and alpha 2 of the transistor models that we are considering. So to make it in that on condition, we have to make alpha 1 plus alpha 2 sufficiently high enough to be close to unity or more than that. So if we can do that, then IA becomes, the anode current becomes sufficiently high, very high. So we can have a huge current flowing. That is the concept of the conduction current that we have. And how that can be triggered, that can be controlled by the mobility of the electrons and the holes parameter. So from that point, if we try to observe the characteristic curve, then we find that we can have either the anode to the voltage, anode to cathode voltage in the negative state, which represents the reverse breakdown voltage region. It continues for a long area in that blocking mode, then it moves into the reverse breakdown voltage. Once it is increased to a forward voltage, it continues in that forward blocking region for a certain state, after which it moves into the forward conduction region when it is sufficiently high to move into that state of high current, high gate current, that is going to ultimately trigger the cathode current itself. And we find that the reverse leakage current, whatever may be generated in that process, that is of the very low order of 100 microamperes, like that. So what we find that in the conduction mode, when the device has moved into the conduction mode, there can be the situation where you have a positive gate to cathode voltage that is going to forward bias first the second transistor Q2, the base emitter junction. So that affects, or that will result into some kind of collector current, that is IC2, which is very much same as the IB1, the base current of the first transistor. So once you have sufficiently high base current for the first transistor, that is going to produce the collector current from the first, which is again being fed back into the second transistor. So this model or this mode continues. So if this continues for loop after loop, iteration after iteration, then what happens? We observe that it is going to produce more base current than is actually needed, and the transistor is going to move into the saturation zone, saturation part, even if we remove the triggering point of this gate. And it is conducting, even if we observe that the anode to the cathode voltage has been reduced, it is in that on state. That particular condition, that it is now into that locked condition in that zone, it is known as the latching. So the observation is, to turn on, we can have two methods. Either you don't have any gate current, you increase the anode to cathode voltage to a sufficiently large condition to switch on the device, or you put some trigger, a small pulse of gate current, which takes the entire device into that latching condition, and you observe that even if you now remove the gate pin, the gate control, you are able to keep the device in that on state. So this is all about the condition for the working of the SCR and its characteristic curve. Is it okay, all of you? Hello. Is someone? Okay. So I will stop here. So in the next class, what we will try to find out that when we have the, or in this Monday's class, we will try to observe one important part, that is, when we are talking about this SCR family, or when we are talking about these turn-off methods, then as I was mentioning on the very first day with this turn-off method, that we have the process of some kind of commutation. So in that commutation, we will have some line commutation, natural commutation, force commutation, all these parameters or these topics to be discussed. But before that, what are the requirements that we must have for these power semiconductor devices, and how this thyristor family that we are referring can be classified? So I will try to look into that segment also, so that you have an idea that what are the devices and how, or what are the basic principles on how they are working. So from that point, we will move on to the turn-off methods also. And then we will see that what are the variable parameters that we have to look for when we try to check the turn-on and the turn-off methods accordingly. So this will be one important zone that we have to consider in the subsequent classes. So I will stop here and take your attendance at this point.